Okay, so it is February 2026, and if you've been anywhere near a financial news feed or honestly just scrolling X for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
you definitely know the vibe.
Oh, yeah.
The last 2 years in crypto haven't just been, volatile. They've been, I think, exhausting is the word.
Exhausting is a good word for it. It
Yeah.
feels like the stakes have just fundamentally changed.
We've seen Bitcoin break records, sure, but we've also
Right.
seen this dark side of the moon just expand in a way that feels, I don't know, different.
It feels different because it is different. We aren't just talking about, teenagers buying stuff on the Silk Road anymore. That was chapter one.
Right.
Now we are talking about nation states funding nuclear programs. We're talking about industrial scale fraud factories and digital bank robberies that make Ocean's 11 look like, I don't know, a convenience store petty theft.
That's exactly the tension we need to unpack today.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this huge stack of research we have on the virtual table here. We've got the latest Chainalysis reports, FBI assessments from the last 24 months, new Europol data on organized crime. And when you read through it, you get this crazy split screen effect. On one side, you've got the tech evangelists still telling you this is the future of financial freedom, the unhackable ledger.
The revolution.
The revolution. And on the other screen, you have regulators and skeptics just screaming that it's the currency of crime.
And, usually the truth is somewhere in the messy middle. But what really stands out in this specific data set, especially looking at 2024 and 2025, is the professionalization of the criminal element.
Yes.
This isn't a hobby anymore for a few coders in a basement. It's an industry.
It really, really is. I was going through those Chainalysis numbers, and the scale is just, it's hard to wrap your head around. In 2024 alone, illicit addresses received over $40.9 billion.
And they're always clear that that's a lower bound estimate. That's the floor.
That's the floor. That's what they can definitively prove. $40 billion slowing through the digital underground. That's not a rounding error. I mean, that's the GDP of a mid-sized European nation just poof, vanishing into the shadow economy.
And that number, as big as it is, doesn't even capture the full psychological toll. We're going to talk about the money, obviously. The $1.5 billion Bybit hack, the massive ransomware payments. But the mission for this deep dive is really to look under the hood. Mechanics. Exactly. I don't want to just list off the crimes. I want to understand the mechanics. How does a North Korean hacker actually trick a billion-dollar exchange? Or how does a pig butchering scam operation in Southeast Asia manage to liquidate millions without getting caught?
It is so much like a heist movie, but the scary part is how often the really high-tech exploit turns out to be just, well, human error.
Always.
We have stories in here about spies, hidden wallets literally buried under floorboards, fake romances, and code that was supposed to be law but ended up being a welcome mat for thieves.
It's this incredible collision of sophisticated digital infrastructure and, Stone Age human psychology. That's where the sparks fly. That's what the danger is.
Okay, so let's ground this for a second before we dive into the really crazy stories. We know the listener understands the basics of crypto, but let's just quickly recap why it's the tool of choice for this specific breed of criminal. If I'm planning a heist, why am I choosing Monero or Ether over, say, a suitcase full of non-sequential bills?
It really comes down to a triad of features that are, at the same time, the technology's greatest strengths and its most dangerous liabilities.
Okay.
First, and this is the big one, you have irreversibility. In the traditional banking world, the fiat world, the whole system is designed with a safety net. If someone clones your credit card and buys a speedboat in Miami,
You call your bank.
you call Chase or Barclays, you dispute the charge, and that centralized authority, the bank hits undo.
Right. It's just a database entry they can edit or delete.
Precisely. In crypto, the blockchain is what we call an append-only ledger. Once a transaction is signed with a private key and broadcast to the network, and the blocks are confirmed.
Yeah.
That's it. It is etched in digital stone. Forever. There is no admin. There is no customer support line for the Bitcoin network. If you send $1 million to a scammer, or if a hacker signs that transaction for you, the money is gone. Mathematically, it belongs to the new key holder. End of story.
Which effectively makes it digital cash. If I drop a bag of gold bars on the sidewalk and you pick them up, possession is 9/10 of the law.
In crypto, possession of the private key is 10/10 of the law.
Full stop.
Exactly. The second feature is pseudonymity. And I really want to emphasize pseudonymity, not anonymity. This is a massive misconception that criminals, especially the, let's say, less sophisticated ones, often learn the hard way.
Yeah, Bitcoin isn't anonymous at all. In fact, it's probably the most transparent accounting system ever invented.
It's a glass vault.
Yeah.
A perfect analogy. You can see every single transaction moving from address A to address B, but address A isn't labeled John Smith. It's labeled 0x7E4 and a long string of characters.
So it's like writing a book under a pen name.
Perfect. You don't need your government ID to open a wallet, which lowers the barrier to entry for criminals. But, and this is the big but, if law enforcement can ever link your real-world identity to that pen name.
Maybe you used an exchange that has your passport on file.
Or you paid for a pizza delivery with it 10 years ago. Then they can retroactively see everything you've ever done on that address. The whole history is public.
So it's just privacy by obscurity until the spotlight hits you. Okay, and the third factor.
Speed and the borderless nature of the network. This is the absolute killer app for international crime. Think about it. If you want to move $50 million from a bank in London to a bank in Pyongyang, you have to go through SWIFT.
And all the correspondent banks and compliance officers.
Compliance officers asking, hey, why are you sending $50 million to a sanctioned regime? It takes days. It might get blocked.
In crypto, you hit send, pay a gas fee.
And it's there in, 12 seconds for Ether? Or 10 minutes for Bitcoin, without a single human being in the middle to say no. That lack of censorship, which is the libertarian dream, is the regulator's nightmare.
Okay, so we have the motive and the means. Now let's get into the method. The research breaks this all down into different genres of crime, and I want to start with the one that feels the most personal to the average user. Section 1. The art of the con. Fraud and scams.
This is really where the bulk of the victim count comes from. It's not necessarily the hackers breaking code, it's the con artist breaking trust.
And looking back at the history, it seems like we go through these huge cycles of this stuff. We had the, what you could call the golden era of scams back in 2017 with the ICO boom.
Oh, the ICO mania?
I remember this so vividly. You couldn't go 5 minutes without seeing a new coin promising to revolutionize, I don't know, dental hygiene or banana farming or something.
The initial coin offering, the ICO, was the Wild West. There was a Citus Group report from back then that was just staggering. It estimated nearly 80% of all those projects were outright scams.
80%.
And the mechanic was almost always the same, the rug pull.
Which is such a perfectly descriptive term. You're standing there all comfortable and confident, and suddenly the floor is just gone.
And the setup is so simple. You create a flashy website, you write a white paper filled with all the right buzzwords, decentralized, synergy, paradigm shift.
You hire a few influencers on YouTube and Twitter to hype it up. This is the next Bitcoin, they say. Don't miss the moon mission.
And people get FOMO. They get scared of missing out, so they pour in their Ethereum or their Bitcoin to buy these new shiny tokens.
And all the while, the developers are the ones who control the liquidity pool.
That's the key. Once that pot gets big enough, the developers dump all of their tokens on the market. They withdraw all the real liquidity, the actual valuable assets like ETH or BTC, and they vanish.
The website goes 404.
The Telegram group gets deleted. The token price instantly goes to zero. Rug pulled.
We have a case study here from the notes that is just audacious. Modern tech in Vietnam. The Pincoin and iFan scandal.
Oh, this one hurts to read about because the promise was so obviously transparently fraudulent, and yet it worked on a massive scale.
What were they promising?
They were promising monthly returns of 48%.
48% a month. That's nearly 600% a year. If anyone offers you that, you don't even need to do due diligence. You just run.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
But greed is a powerful drug. It blinds people. They see their neighbor making money, or at least they see a number going up on a screen, and they jump in. Modern Tech raised $660 million.
From how many people?
32,000 investors. And they put on a show. They held these huge gala events with fireworks, champagne. It looked like a legitimate, thriving empire.
Until it wasn't.
Until the founders packed their bags and ghosted with $2/3 of $1 billion.
Wow. And, we can't talk about this era without mentioning BitConnect.
Of course.
It's basically a meme now. Everyone knows the hey, hey, hey guy screaming on stage, but underneath that meme, it was just devastating financial ruin for thousands and thousands of people.
BitConnect was the archetypal Ponzi scheme. They reached a market cap of $3.4 billion. Think about that for a second. A completely fake project worth more than many legitimate S&P 500 companies at the time.
And what was their pitch? What was the lie?
Their pitch was that they had a proprietary trading bot You lend them your Bitcoin, the bot trades the market's volatility, and it pays you a consistent 1% a day.
Spoiler alert, there was no bot.
There was never a bot. It was never about a bot. They were just taking money from new investors to pay the interest to the old investors. It's the classic Bernie Madoff structure, just accelerated by the speed and reach of the blockchain.
So those are the big, wide-net financial frauds, but the research really highlights a shift in the last few years to something much more targeted and, frankly, much darker.
Pig butchering.
Pig butchering, the name alone just makes my skin crawl.
It should. It's a direct translation from the Chinese term sha zupan. The metaphor is gruesome for a reason. You take a pig, you feed it, you groom it, you fatten it up, and then you slaughter it.
And in this analogy, the pig is the victim, and the fattening is a completely fabricated romance.
This is where crypto crime intersects with modern slavery and human trafficking. Unlike the ICO scams, which just cast a wide net, pig butchering is sniper-focused.
How does it usually start?
It often starts with a simple wrong number text or a match on a dating app. Oh, sorry, I thought this was my yoga teacher's number. You reply, no, wrong number. And they say, oh, well, you seem nice, though. Let's chat.
And they don't ask for money. Not at first. That's the key.
No, that's the amateur move.
Yeah.
These people are professionals. They will talk to you for weeks, sometimes months. They build a relationship. They simulate a real emotional connection.
They send voice notes, photos.
Often stolen, or these days, generated by AI. They talk about their life, their dreams, and then just casually, so casually, they'll mention how well they're doing with their investments.
Oh, I just bought a new car thanks to this amazing liquidity mining node I'm in.
Exactly that. And eventually, the victim asks how it works. The scammer says, oh, it's easy. I can show you. They direct the victim to a website that looks completely indistinguishable from a real exchange. It has charts, tickers, customer support chatbots, the works.
And they encourage the victim to start small.
Always. Just put in a little money, they say. Maybe $1,000. And the victim does.
And they let them win.
They rig the numbers. The screen shows a profit. They even let the victim withdraw, say, $200 or $500 back to their bank account.
And that's the hook. That's the moment the trap is set.
That is the hook. The victim thinks, it's real. I got money out. This person really cares about me. And then they go all in. Life savings, retirement funds. They take out second mortgages.
And that's the slaughter.
That's the slaughter. When they try to withdraw the big amount, the trap slams shut. The site suddenly says, account frozen due to suspicious activity. You must pay a 20% tax to unlock it.
So they're bleeding them even more.
They bleed them dry. Desperate. The victim pays the tax. Then it's a security deposit. Then it's an expedited withdrawal fee. They keep going until there is absolutely nothing left.
But the twist here, and this is why you mentioned human trafficking, is that the person on the other end of that text message often isn't the mastermind. They're a victim too.
That's the most horrific part of it. We call them fraud factories. There are these massive guarded compounds in places like Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos. People are lured there with legitimate job offers for call centers or casinos, and when they arrive, their passports are taken, and they are forced to run these scams under the threat of extreme physical violence.
So when you're interacting with a pig butchering scammer, you are often talking to a victim of modern slavery who is victimizing you just to survive.
It's a tragedy on both sides of the screen. It really changes the calculus from just a greedy criminal to something far more systemic and, frankly, horrific.
Yeah, it creates a moral complexity that I imagine law enforcement really struggles to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pivot to something slightly less heavy but equally pervasive. The giveaway scam. This feels like the cockroach of the internet. It just survives everything.
It really does.
The classic, send me 1 ETH, I'll send you 2 ETH back.
It seems so obvious, but it relies on the suspension of disbelief that's triggered by authority. If a random account tweets that, you block them. But what if Elon Musk tweets it? Or what if Apple's official account tweets it?
The 2020 Twitter hack. That was such a wild day. I remember just refreshing my feed and seeing Obama, Biden, Bill Gates, and Kanye West all tweeting about a Bitcoin giveaway at the exact same time.
That was a massive, massive failure of centralized security. The hackers didn't break Bitcoin, they broke Twitter. They used social engineering to get access to Twitter's internal administrative tools. And from there, they hijacked 130 high-profile accounts.
And the scam itself was so dumb. I'm feeling generous. I'm doubling all payments sent to my address for the next 30 minutes.
It's dumb to us because we're looking at it with a cool head. But in the moment, with that blue check mark, back when the blue check mark actually meant identity verification, people panicked. They thought, this is it. My chance.
How much did they actually get?
They raked in about $110,000 in just a few minutes, which honestly feels low for hacking the president's account.
It could have been so much worse.
So much worse. But the modern version of this is even more insidious because it uses deepfakes. We've seen this plague YouTube. They'll take an old interview of Steve Wozniak or Michael Saylor, and they'll use AI to loop it or alter the audio so it sounds like they're promoting a new giveaway live on stream.
I remember Wozniak actually sued YouTube over this. He was furious because they just couldn't take the streams down fast enough. His reputation was being used to rob people in real time.
And it gets even more targeted. Look at this example from the notes. The 2025 Trump-Vance inauguration scam. This wasn't a broad public broadcast. This was a spear phishing attack.
Right, they impersonated Steve Witkoff, the real estate guy?
Exactly. Witkoff is a well-known real estate mogul and a close ally of Donald Trump. The scammers spoofed an email domain that looked almost identical to his real business. They reached out to a specific political donor and said, "We need a last-minute contribution for the inauguration committee, and we need it in crypto for speed."
And the donor, trusting the source, just sent it.
Transferred $250,000
Wow.
in USDT. The FBI actually managed to work with Tether to freeze about 40,000 of it, but the rest was gone, washed through mixers in minutes. It just goes to show that whether you're a grandmother on Facebook or a high-roller political donor, the vulnerability is the same. Trust.
Okay, so let's move on from the con, where they trick you into giving them the money, to the heist, where they just kick the door down. This is section 2, the exchange hacks, the infrastructure exploits.
The bank robberies of the digital age.
And you have to start by paying homage to the original disaster, Mt. Gox. If you were around in crypto in 2013, 2014, this was the event.
It was the Cambrian explosion and the extinction event all at once. Mt. Gox handled something like 70% of all Bitcoin transactions at one point. It was the center of the universe.
And the hack itself wasn't a one-time smash and grab, right? It was a slow bleed over years.
That's what was so crazy. Hackers had access to the exchange's hot wallet for years. By the time the exchange finally collapsed and filed for bankruptcy, 850,000 Bitcoin were missing.
850,000 Bitcoin at today's prices. I mean, don't even do the math. It's just too depressing. It's hundreds of billions of dollars.
It was the event that birthed the mantra we all know now, not your keys, not your coins. It taught an entire generation of users that a centralized exchange is just a bank, but with much, much worse insurance.
But you'd think we would have learned from that. Yeah, here we are looking at the notes for February 2025 last year. The Bybit heist. $1.5 billion in Ether stolen. How does that happen 10 years after Mt. Gox? Are security teams just sleeping?
No, not at all. The security is exponentially better. But the attackers are exponentially more sophisticated. The Bybit attack has been attributed, with high confidence, to the Lazarus group.
Which means North Korea.
Yes. And we need to pause on this for a second because it's a crucial geopolitical point. For North Korea, crypto theft isn't just crime. It's foreign policy.
It's a revenue stream.
It's a primary revenue stream for the state. They use it to fund their missile program and to evade crushing international sanctions. They have a literal army of state-trained hackers who do nothing all day but look for vulnerabilities in Western and Asian financial infrastructure.
How do they do it? How did they hit Bybit?
It wasn't a simple password guess or anything like that. They exploited a very subtle discrepancy in the exchange's hot wallet management system. A hot wallet, as you know, is connected to the internet for quick withdrawals.
Right, as opposed to a cold wallet, which is offline.
Exactly. The hackers found a way to manipulate the internal ledger of the exchange versus the actual blockchain execution. They effectively tricked the system into processing the same large withdrawal request multiple times across different transaction batches before the internal balance had a chance to update.
A kind of race condition.
A very, very complex and well-timed race condition. By the time the automated alarms finally triggered, $1.5 billion had been siphoned out to thousands of newly created, unidentified addresses.
And it's not always pure code exploits either. The DMM Bitcoin hack in 2024, 300 million lost. That was pure social engineering again, but corporate style.
That one was just brutal. The hackers posed as recruiters on LinkedIn. They targeted specific engineers working at DMM. They went through a weeks-long, totally convincing interview process, built a rapport, and then for the final stage, they sent a coding challenge for the engineer to complete.
Just download this file and solve the puzzle.
And the file was malware. The moment the engineer ran it on their work laptop, the hackers had a backdoor into the exchange's internal network. From there, they pivoted to the key management server and systematically drained the wallets.
That's terrifying because it weaponizes ambition. It exploits the very normal human desire to get a better job.
State-sponsored actors are just playing a different game, and sometimes it's not even about the money. Look at the predatory sparrow incident in 2025.
This was the Iran-Israel cyber warfare component that we saw flare up.
Exactly. During that heightened conflict, a hacking group linked to Israel, known as Predatory Sparrow, targeted Nobitex, which is Iran's largest crypto exchange. They drained $90 million. But the goal there arguably wasn't just theft, it was economic disruption.
It was about causing panic in the Iranian financial sector.
It turns the blockchain into just another battlefield.
Literally. Now, we also need to talk about DeFi, decentralized finance. This is where that code is law philosophy really gets stress tested. And the biggest single point of failure seems to be these things called bridges.
Bridges are the choke points of the multi-chain world. To understand why, you have to picture blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum as separate islands. They don't speak the same language. They can't interact directly.
So if you want to move gold from Bitcoin Island to Ethereum Island, you can't just throw it across the ocean.
Right. You need a ferry, a bridge. You give your Bitcoin to a bridge protocol. The protocol locks your Bitcoin in a vault on the Bitcoin island, and then it issues you a receipt, a wrapped Bitcoin or WBTC on the Ethereum island.
So the bridge itself is holding all the real underlying assets in one big pile.
And that's the problem. It's a massive honeypot, a huge, tempting target. If a hacker can find a single bug in a smart contract that governs that vault, they can unlock everything. And that's exactly what happened with Poly Network, which lost $611 million.
And Wormhole.
Wormhole, which lost over $300 million. That's a recurring nightmare.
The Quibbit Finance one is almost darkly funny.
Quibbit was a tragedy of pure logic. The hacker exploited a function in the bridge code that had a flaw. They realized that if they told the contract they wanted to deposit 0 ETH, the code didn't reject it properly.
It didn't have a check for 0.
No. Instead, through this logic flaw, it accepted the 0 deposit and credited them as if they had deposited millions of dollars.
So they deposited literally nothing, and the computer said, okay, cool, here's $80 million in credit for you.
And they then borrowed real assets against that completely fake collateral and just walked away. It perfectly highlights the risk of pure DeFi. There is no human backstop. If the code allows it, the blockchain will execute it, no matter how absurd the outcome.
Before we leave this heist section, I have to ask about the attacks that hit the little guy. We've talked about these huge exchanges, but what about wallet drainers? I feel like I see people on Twitter crying about this every single day. I clicked a link and my apes are gone.
This is probably the most prevalent threat for the average user right now. A drainer is a malicious smart contract. You're browsing and you see a site promising a free NFT mint or a special airdrop claim. You connect your wallet because you want the free thing.
And a transaction pops up in your MetaMask or your Phantom wallet asking for approval.
Right. And nobody, and I mean nobody, reads the code in that pop-up. It's just gibberish to 99.9% of people.
It looks like every other transaction.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it's usually calling a function like set approval for all. If you click confirm on that, you are not receiving a free NFT. You are legally, according to the code, granting the attacker's wallet permission to move all of your tokens, all your NFTs, all your coins.
It's like handing someone the keys to your house and signing over the deed, all because you thought you were just signing for a package delivery.
That's a perfect analogy. One click, one signature, and your wallet is empty seconds later.
And what about clipboard hijacking? This one makes me paranoid every single time I copy-paste an address.
It should. It's a very sneaky piece of malware. It infects your PC, and it just watches your clipboard in the background. It's programmed to know what a crypto address looks like, that long string of characters starting with 0x or BC1.
So when I copy my friend's address to send them some money,
The malware detects it instantly and swaps it in the clipboard with the hacker's address.
so I hit copy on my friend's address, but when I hit paste into my wallet, a completely different address appears.
And because they all look like random alphanumeric soup, most people don't notice the change. They hit send, and the money is gone forever.
So the only defense is to be vigilant.
Always. Always check the first 4 and the last 4 characters of the address after you paste. It's the only way to be sure.
Okay, so the money is stolen. The hacker has the $100 million. But now they have a new problem. Everyone can see the money. It's sitting there on the public ledger. Which brings us to Section 3. The shadow economy. How do they wash it? How do they make it clean?
This is the critical wash cycle. You have dirty crypto coins that are tagged by blockchain analytics firms like Chainalysis as stolen. If you try to send those coins directly to a major exchange like Coinbase or Binance to cash out,
Their systems will flag it.
instantly. The exchange will freeze the funds because their compliance systems know they're stolen property. So you need to break the chain of custody.
You need to obfuscate the history.
And the primary tool for this, historically, has been mixers or tumblers. Tornado Cash was the most famous and effective one.
How does a mixer actually work mechanically?
Imagine a giant digital pot. I put in my one dirty Bitcoin. You put in your one clean Bitcoin. 1,000 other people, some with clean coins, some with dirty, all put their Bitcoin into this pot. The protocol uses cryptography to mix them all up, and then it allows us to withdraw one Bitcoin each to fresh, new, unconnected wallets.
So my withdrawal can't be deterministically linked back to my specific deposit.
That's the idea. It breaks that on-chain link. But law enforcement has gotten very good at analyzing the statistical probabilities of these flows, and they've started sanctioning the mixers themselves, making them radioactive. So criminals have moved to chain hopping.
Which is just jumping from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Monero and so on.
Exactly. They use those bridges we talked about. They swap BTC for ETH on a decentralized exchange. Then they bridge the ETH to another chain, swap it for Monero, which is a privacy coin with its own built-in obfuscation. Then swap the Monero for a stablecoin like USDT.
It's like a getaway car.
It's like taking a getaway car, painting it a different color, swapping the license plates, then trading it for a boat, then trading the boat for a private plane. Each hop makes the trail exponentially harder to follow.
And the notes mention NFTs as laundromats. This is fascinating to me, this idea of wash trading.
The high-end art world has always been a haven for money laundering because value is completely subjective. Why is this Jackson Pollock painting worth $100 million? Because someone was willing to pay that for it. NFTs are the same, but on steroids.
So walk me through it. If I'm a hacker with $1 million in stolen ether.
You create a really dumb NFT, a picture of a rock, let's say. You list it for sale. Then you use a completely different wallet, the one that holds your stolen funds, to buy that rock from yourself for $1 million.
Oh. And now my first wallet, the artist wallet, has $1 million of what looks like clean, legitimate profit from selling a piece of digital art.
Precisely. You can tell the tax authorities, I'm just a savvy digital art dealer. It creates a plausible story to legitimize the funds. The U.S. Treasury actually released a whole study comparing the high-value traditional art market to NFTs for exactly this risk.
And all of this infrastructure, the mixers, the cash-out services, a lot of it lives on the darknet. We all know the Silk Road story, but that was just the beginning, wasn't it?
Silk Road was the proof of concept. It showed it could be done. But markets like Hydra, which was a massive Russian language market, were industrial scale. Before it was taken down by German police in 2022, Hydra was doing $1.5 billion in revenue in a single year.
And it wasn't just drugs?
Oh no. They sold everything. Fake IDs, stolen credit card data, hacking services, and they offered sophisticated cash-out services where you could arrange for dead drops of physical cash in exchange for your crypto.
So it creates a completely closed-loop economy for criminals.
And for rogue states. Sanctions evasion is the macro version of all of this. We saw $15.8 billion in sanctions-related flows in 2024 alone. Countries like Russia and Iran are using crypto to bypass the SWIFT blockade. If they can't use US dollars to trade, they'll use Tether or Bitcoin to settle international deals.
Which brings us to a specific criminal business model that relies entirely on this shadow economy. Ransomware. Section 4. The silent extortion.
Ransomware existed before crypto, but crypto was the rocket fuel that let it take over the world. Before Bitcoin, if you hacked a hospital's database, how did you get paid?
It was a huge logistical problem for the criminals.
Right. You couldn't ask them to wire money to your bank account. The police would trace it instantly.
Yeah.
You'd have to ask for a bag of cash left in a park, which is incredibly risky.
Crypto solved the payment problem.
It completely solved the payment problem. It allowed hackers to extort victims from thousands of miles away with relative safety. And the numbers have just exploded. We saw $1.1 billion in ransoms paid in 2023.
And the individual payouts are getting bigger and bigger. The Dark Angels group.
That was a real watershed moment in 2024. They targeted a Fortune 500 tech company. And they didn't just encrypt the data, they exfiltrated it. They stole terabytes of sensitive R&D, customer data, employee info. The company caved and paid a $75 million ransom.
$75 million. That's an IPO for a small company.
It creates this perverse incentive structure. If you can make $75 million in a single hit, you can afford to hire the best developers in the world, you can buy zero-day exploits on the black market, and you can run a sophisticated criminal enterprise.
We call it ransomware as a service.
It's a franchise model. The core developers write the malware and run the infrastructure, and they recruit affiliates who do the actual hacking, and then they just split the profits. It's like McDonald's, but for extortion.
It's just a business.
A very profitable one.
And then there's the parasite version of this, cryptojacking.
Right. This is less violent, more of a nuisance, but still a huge problem. Hackers infect a computer or a server with a script that just mines cryptocurrency in the background, using your resources.
So my computer suddenly slows to a crawl, my fan sounds like a jet engine is taking off, and my electricity bill doubles.
And the hacker is collecting the coins. There's a famous script called CoinHive a few years ago that infected thousands and thousands of websites, universities, government portals, you name it. If you visited the site, your browser would start mining Monero for the hacker for as long as you had the tab open.
And why Monero, specifically?
Because Bitcoin requires specialized hardware now, those loud, hot ASIC miners. You can't mine Bitcoin efficiently on a regular laptop anymore. But Monero's algorithm is designed to be mined on regular CPUs, so it's the coin of choice for these massive botnets.
Okay, so we've been very digital so far. But Section 5 brings us into what the internet calls meat space.
The physical world.
Because ultimately, humans live in houses, not on the blockchain. And this is the wrench attack.
This is the ultimate trump card against any digital security. You can have a hardware wallet, you could have a 24-word seed phrase memorized, you can use a complex multi-sig vault, but if someone breaks into your house, ties you to a chair, and threatens to break your kneecaps with a $5 wrench,
you give them the password.
You give us the password. Cryptography cannot solve the problem of physical violence.
And we saw a horrifying case of this in Manhattan in 2025. An investor was kidnapped off the street and held for weeks.
They beat him, drugged him, and systematically forced him to disclose his keys and transfer his assets. It shows that as crypto wealth becomes more public, as people flash their NFTs and portfolios online, the physical risks increase dramatically. It's why so many of the early crypto billionaires have completely disappeared from public life or now travel with extensive security teams.
In the Ellis Pinsky case, the irony in that one is just so thick.
Pinsky was known in online circles as Baby Al Capone. At just 15 years old, he allegedly masterminded a SIM-swapping ring, stealing people's phone numbers to get into their accounts, and stole around $24 million from an early crypto investor named Michael Turpin.
A 15-year-old with $24 million.
But here's the twist. In May of 2020, Pinsky himself was the victim of a violent home invasion. Other criminals knew he had the loot. They broke into his house with shotguns, looking for the money he had stolen.
Wow. No honor among thieves.
It's an incredibly dangerous game. When you decide to become your own bank, you also have to be prepared to become your own security guard.
And speaking of physical infrastructure, we have to touch on energy theft. This is a massive issue in any country with cheap or, I guess, stealable power.
Mining proof-of-work coins like Bitcoin requires a massive amount of electricity. It's the single biggest operational cost for any mining farm. So to boost their margins, criminal gangs just steal the power.
The numbers out of Malaysia are staggering.
Tenaga National, the main utility company there, estimated they lost nearly $1 billion over a 5-year period due to illegal mining connections. The miners literally bypassed the meters. They wired directly into the high-voltage mains.
Which is incredibly dangerous, right?
It causes fires. It causes blackouts for entire neighborhoods. It destabilizes the grid. We saw that case in the UK where police raided a warehouse because the heat signature from their helicopter was off the charts. They were absolutely convinced it was a giant cannabis farm.
They kicked down the door expecting to find weed.
And found racks and racks of servers mining Bitcoin with wires running everywhere. It's the perfect symbol of the modern criminal economy shifting from, drugs to data.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty bleak picture here. Hacks, scams, kidnappings, energy theft, it really does sound like the Wild West. But Section 6 is the long arm of the law. Is the sheriff finally coming to town?
The sheriff is already here, and he has much better tools than the bandits realize. And this brings us right back to the central paradox of all this.
Yeah.
The public ledger.
The permanent, unchangeable record.
Criminals love the speed and borderless nature of crypto. But cops are learning to love the permanence. If you stole Bitcoin in 2011, the record of that theft is still there today. It never degrades, it never gets shredded. And agencies like the FBI, Europol, and especially the IRS have become absolute experts at chain analysis.
So they can follow the money even through the mixers and the chain hops?
It takes time. It
Huh.
takes resources, but they can do it. Look at the Bitfinex hack. That was back in 2016. Billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin stolen. For years, the money just sat there, moving occasionally. Everyone thought the hackers had gotten away with it.
And then years later,
Then, in 2022, the DOJ arrests a couple in New York, Ilya Lichtenstein and Heather Morgan.
Razzle Khan.
Yes, the aspiring Forbes contributor and surrealist rapper.
I've watched her music videos. I'm still not sure what was the bigger crime, the money laundering or the rapping.
The rapping was arguably worse. But the seizure itself was historic. They recovered $3.6 billion initially, a value which later grew to over $4.5 billion. It was the largest financial seizure in DOJ history, and it sent a message. You can hide on the blockchain for a while, but cashing out without getting caught is incredibly hard.
And the Silk Road recovery involving this guy, James Zong, this story is just, it's cinematic.
Zong was an early user of the Silk Road darknet market. He found a glitch in their withdrawal system way back in 2012. He figured out how to trigger it multiple times and stole 50,000 Bitcoin from the site.
So he literally robbed the robbers.
He did, and he just held on to it
Yeah.
for 10 years. He never touched it, and the value ballooned from a few $100,000 into the billions.
And where was he keeping this digital fortune? In a Swiss bank, in some underground fortress.
In a popcorn tin.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm serious. He had a single-board computer with the wallet's private keys on it, hidden inside an empty Cheetos popcorn tin buried under a pile of blankets in his bathroom closet in Gainesville, Georgia.
A popcorn tin holding billions of dollars. That's incredible.
He lived a pretty modest life, didn't spend much. But the on-chain analytics eventually traced the stolen coins to him. They raided the house, found the tin, and seized all of it. It just shows that even if you have perfect operational security for a decade, you only have to make one tiny mistake. The blockchain waits.
And we're also seeing the industry itself start to police the ecosystem. The notes mention Tether helping the FBI freeze funds.
This is a major, major shift. Companies like Tether, which issues USDT, and Circle, which issues USDC, are centralized. Their stablecoins are basically smart contracts, and they have a freeze function built into the code.
So they have a kill switch.
They have a kill switch. If the FBI identifies a wallet holding USDT as belonging to a scammer or a terrorist group, they can send a warrant to Tether, and Tether will blacklist that address. The money in it is frozen instantly. It becomes unmovable.
That kind of destroys the whole uncensorable money narrative, but I guess it's great for stopping crime.
Well, it is for centralized tokens. In the 2025 inauguration scam we mentioned earlier, that's how they recovered the $40,000. It wasn't the Ethereum blockchain that stopped it. It was the centralized company running the token on top of Ethereum.
And all of this is happening as regulation tightens globally. The travel rule.
Right. This is the standard banking rule being applied to crypto. The idea is that if an exchange sends over a certain amount of money to another exchange, they have to send the customer's identity data along with it. It forces the ecosystem to de-anonymize.
So the walls are definitely closing in.
For the casual criminal, absolutely. The old Wild West days of anonymous transfers on major regulated exchanges like Coinbase or Binance are completely over.
So let's try and bring all this together. We've covered a lot of ground here, from the deep psychology of the pig butchering scam to the technical wizardry of a cross-chain bridge hack. What is the grand synthesis here?
I think the big takeaway is that crypto crime has evolved from being this niche, nerdy curiosity into a full-blown mirror of the global financial underworld. It has everything. State actors, organized crime syndicates, lone wolf hackers, desperate individuals. But the technology amplifies everything. It makes the scams faster, the thefts larger, and the investigations more complex than anything we've seen before.
And for our listener, the learner we're talking to, who might be holding some Bitcoin or is maybe experimenting with DeFi, what is the practical take-home lesson from all this?
The lesson is that self-custody is a double-edged sword. The idea of being your own bank is incredibly empowering. You have total control, total autonomy, but you also have total unforgiving liability. There is no fraud department to call if you mess up.
So the big question, is crypto safe?
I'd say it's safe in the way a tank is safe. The core machine is practically invincible if you know how to operate it and you keep the hatches locked. But if you open the main hatch because a stranger with a nice smile asks you to, or if you accidentally drive it into a minefield.
Or if you just leave the keys in the ignition.
Exactly. The vulnerability is almost always the user. The human being sitting at the keyboard, not the math that secures the network.
I want to end with a provocative thought that the notes bring up, which I find fascinating. We talked about the permanent public ledger. As artificial intelligence gets better and better at pattern recognition, and as these blockchain tracing tools get more powerful, are we heading toward a future where crypto is actually the worst possible tool for crime?
That is the beautiful irony that might be waiting for us at the end of this road. If you rob a bank of physical cash, those bills eventually degrade, they get dispersed, they're spent, the evidence fades over time. But on the blockchain, the evidence is immortal.
So you might get away with the hack in 2026. But in 2036, a powerful AI agent might be tasked with looking back at the entire history of the chain, and it might spot a tiny pattern, a correlation that no human could ever see, and it could identify you.
There is effectively no statute of limitations on the evidence itself. The idea of the clean getaway might just be a myth in the age of the public blockchain. We might eventually find that this Wild West was actually the most surveilled financial system in human history. We just didn't have the lights turned on yet.
That is a very sobering thought to chew on. If you enjoyed this deep dive, maybe go check your wallet permissions, think about buying a hardware wallet, and please, for the love of everything, do not send ETH to anyone on the internet promising to double it.
Please just don't.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.